Welcome to the Waiting List podcast. Tell us a story.
It's like many things you start building from scratch.
And then I'm like, wait, I really do like watches because
You've seen so many watches that makes you excited.
I think I really do like watches.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to see if you are a watch enthusiast.
Hey guys, it's Jacqueline here. Welcome back to another episode of the Waiting List podcast. Today we come back with part 2 of our interview with Mr. Eric Koo. As always, I am joined by Daniel and Long Long. And by the way, if you guys haven't listened to part 1, I highly recommend you to go and listen to that conversation. I personally feel like I just learned a whole lot. And if I were to speak for Dan, I think it's like the episode where he had the least to say, which is not the case at all.
Yeah.
So definitely go check it out. And then I guess we'll just continue with the conversation here. I mean, by the way, how did you guys feel about that conversation, Dan and Long?
Well, I to be honest, I was actually going to say at the end of the last podcast, but I love the way that Eric talks through stories.
Yes.
Everything is related to stories.
Yes.
And I love that. You know, I think we all love stories, but everything, whatever, even if it wasn't watch related, there's a story behind it. So I found that really nice.
Yeah.
I think, I realized like the people that we want to interview the most, like next time I'm going to be like, look, I don't want to do the questions because I really want to be like engaged and like fully listening. And Jacqueline, you're right. Dan usually talks a lot. And this one, he was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just going to listen.
Yeah.
That's because I do most of the interviews.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, but you're right. Like, I think we do engage the best with stories. I guess we'll just like go straight into it with like a story typed question, which is, Eric, you've been collecting for so long, and you're such like a prominent figure in the community. And I wanted to ask you, like, if watch collecting were viewed as like a person in your life, how would you describe your relationship with that person? How was it when you first met them? How is it going now? Or has anything changed between the past couple of, like a few decades that you've been collecting into watches for?
Damn, good question.
This is a very thought-provoking question here. I think that, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I look at watch collecting and then by extension, I guess, watch dealing a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's like my significant other, really, Don't
let your wife hear. She's complaining about your playing like text work at home.
Exactly. But, this is like, I mean, it's been a lifelong passion of mine. When I was a little kid, I was just really fascinated by watches. I don't know why, maybe it had to do with, the mechanical aspect of things, but I was always really interested in watches. And this is something that is, carried through with me for, I don't know, I'm 42 right now. So it's been like a long time. Early memories that I had were of National Geographic magazine and all the Rolex advertisements inside there when I was younger. I think that was the first magazine I ever got a subscription to. And, it's just something that, keeps me, keeps me on the game. It was really interesting. I was listening to RL Box from Phillips do a podcast with John Reardon recently.
Yeah, I also listened to that. Yeah.
If you guys haven't listened, you should listen to it. And, one of the things that he said, I don't know, maybe in a slightly negative way, but I don't view it that way. It's like, at what point is work and then, leisure time or pleasure? It's like, if you are sitting at home at nighttime and looking through an auction catalog, like, is that work? Or is that like pleasure because you enjoy watches, And that really resonated with me because I feel the same way, You asked me before we jumped on again, about my daily schedule or whatever. And I think it's just the lines are really blurred a lot, So, and again, tying it back to your question, like I just look at watches and my hobby of collecting watches and then my business of dealing watches kind of as an extension of who I am and kind of like my other half, if you will, you know. It's a
Yeah.
part of me that will always be there. It's never gonna not be part of my life. And yeah, I mean that's just who I am, you know.
Yeah. I was recently watching a interview with Kari Voutilainen,
Yep.
and I think it was like Watches TV or anyways, one of the interviews he did. And he said, you know, as a kid, he started getting into watchmaking because of his dad, I think. And
Hmm.
then when he started working, he was lucky because he never had to work a single day in his life. Do
Yep.
you feel that? Or do you think there is still like a distinction between work and life?
I mean, I think there's definitely, I'm not gonna romanticize it in that it's just all like play and no work. I mean, there is a lot of work, you know.
Yeah.
But it's something that is manageable. And, you know, I mean, I don't know, like I enjoy the mechanics of like the deal. So there's always like
Yeah.
something like exciting about things going on,
Yeah.
watch related, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it is work for sure.
Yeah.
It's not just pleasure, but it's something that I enjoy doing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, you come off as we've never met before, but we've chatted
Sure.
and you come off as some like a go-getter, definitely.
Hmm.
And this actually reminds me of another this just tells how much time I spent on YouTube. An interview that Horror Guides did with your friend Morgan, and he was talking about a watch that you actually helped him find, which is the RCO.
Yep.
And he was telling the story of how you reached out to him and said, you know, you don't have this one, but I know a few guys who do. Do you
Yep.
want one? If you do, we can like work out a deal. And then he actually wanted one, and then you were texting him, you're like, okay, I'm going to Hong Kong tomorrow, like I'll work out the
Yep.
deal. Do
Yep.
you physically, like you said, you enjoy the mechanics of working out a deal? What is it about that, like, say even now or during COVID time where you're restrained from traveling, but is that something that you miss, flying to places? And you know, you have the option of carrying out a deal without meeting in person, but is that something that you would prefer to do?
I mean, there's certain instances more often than not. I think it's more fun, if you will, to kind of do the deal or whatever you want to say, like negotiate something in person or meet somebody face to face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's this a collector customer of mine that has since become like a really good friend, and he used to always joke. You know, there was a Western TV show in the '60s, and then I don't remember, it's something like way before my time, but you know, the guy like he's like kept telling me I should print business cards that say "Have gun, will travel," and like it's like one of those things. Like, you know, part of what I do, I feel like it's almost like, I don't know, like being like Indiana Jones. Like I'm always like hunting excitement and exciting things. And that part of travel, like obviously I miss a lot, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, during COVID time, I was able to conduct my business successfully still without having to do that travel part.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you've conducted your business like very successfully with the new launch of your website, loupethis.
Yes.
And I think
This.
I mean, tell us about the process behind it. When did you start planning it? Because to me, like, it felt like it was launched during the perfect time, almost like COVID, everyone's at home, and then we're looking for watches online, and then there's an online
Yeah.
option, right?
So it's funny you should say that because like any sort of new thing, you know, things always get delayed, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
My partner Justin Gruenberg and I uh, have been thinking about this idea in broad strokes for, I don't know, maybe 2 years
Mm-hmm.
prior to launch. And you know, the first year it's just like talking, and the second year it was like, okay, like we should put something down on paper. He's a friend that I met in the trade, and we became fast friends as opposed to just business associates or whatever. And we always knew that we wanted to like do something together. Our business ideals and a lot of things are kind of aligned, so we work well together.
Yeah.
And we started putting things on paper. The genesis of this is both he and I participate a lot in traditional watch auctions. We buy and sell a lot with all the auction houses, and a conversation arose out of what do we like from this process of dealing with these guys, and what we don't like, and what inefficiencies there are in the model, and how they can be improved. So logically, this turned into the we could do something the way that we would want to do it.
Right.
And that's how like loupethis was ultimately born.
Right.
We were going to launch I think September of 2020, and COVID pushed back development time a while, and then all these other things happened. We really started working hard on it probably in February in no excuse me yeah probably in January of 2020, or maybe even a little earlier. I don't even remember now. But we worked with a really great development team and designers. Ironically, the designers that we use to do the site, it's a partnership. These two guys based in San Francisco with a small design company, and independent to our project. One of them had worked on the IWC website years ago, and one of them worked designing the AP website many iterations ago. So it was kind of like a funny thing. They're not watch guys, but they had some kind of experience in this, and they're really, on the top of their game, and one of the best. It was the best experience ever working with these guys. Right. And we then originally were going to launch in January of 2021, and deadlines keep getting pushed back and pushed back. Development issues. My nightmare is launching the site and then having everything crash, which touch wood hasn't happened yet.
Right.
But finally it got to the point. At first we were like, okay, we're gonna launch like June 1st.
Right.
Then it got like pushed back, and I was like, you know what? We really have to launch July 1st. And we did launch on July 1st. And it was actually, like you said, really good timing, but we didn't plan it. It was good timing in the sense that, first off, like we don't aim to be like direct competitors with the auction houses. Like what we do is on a much smaller scale with much different pieces and whatnot. But we feel that, the auction schedule traditionally revolves around like a spring season and a fall season, right? And then in between, there's like a lot of dead time. What we wanted was to create a company that operates like 24/7. We have auctions like every day. I mean, every weekday, basically. Yeah. And, right now, we launch 2 watches a day. We see this currently as kind of like a beta test, because we want to make sure there's no kinks before we really ramp up. But there's nothing stopping us from, doing 10 watches a day or 20 or whatever, So, right now we're finding that 2 is, it's not many, but it's like a sweet spot for us to kind of see what we need to improve on and see what works.
Yeah. And
then ramp up from there. But getting back to the timing thing, I mean, July, there's nothing really going on in the auction world. Everybody's on summer vacation.
Yeah.
And, we see our site as this one that's kind of like, look, you might not buy anything from there. You might not. But, you go there like in the morning when you have your cup of coffee. It's like going to like Houdinki, going to CNN.com, whatever. You just look to see what's there. We try to put a little bit of an education element, write a little advertorial about things. And then it's just like you get a little digest of like watch stuff, and then you can go on with your day. If there's something you like, you can certainly bid. And, it's something that we see as potentially being like a really sticky site that people that are into watches will gravitate towards.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think about like, because you mentioned that loupethis is currently releasing 2 watches a day, right?
Yep.
So I'm not familiar with, I mean, I would imagine that you have like an inventory of watches already, you know, behind, and then you have
Sure.
it planned out scheduling. But then
Yep.
by 2 days, 2 watches a day, that's still quite a few like number of watches. So
Yep.
like, how has it currently, like how much are you getting it from your inventory, and how much are people like consigning? And for those who are consigning watches, like what's the message that loupethis wants to send to collectors? Like, why consign with us other than like with dealers or other like
Or like
auction
Collected Man or
houses?
something.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, again, you know, for us, we certainly like, there's a mix of product in there. Both Justin and I are longstanding dealers with, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of inventory and whatever.
Yeah.
We've been putting away things that we wanted to put on the site. And at the same time, you know, have a network of other friends and colleagues that have entrusted us with their items to sell. One thing that is a very positive thing from our point of view is that from day one, July 1st, when we launched, we've averaged about, you know, 1 to 2 consignments a day from like people we don't know that see the site, they like what we do, and are willing to like entrust us with their watches, even though like, you know, Justin and I are well known, but the website is like relatively new, right? So we've really been getting a lot of consignments, which is obviously like a positive sign for the business. And, you know, the results that we've been achieving so far have been quite good. I would say everything either brings the market price or more. And, you know, like you know, we have launched right now. We'd like to continue this for as long as we can. And I realize there's certain test cases where this might not work, but we really believe that the market is in equilibrium, and meaning that we should be able to launch every watch on the site at no reserve and have like good results for everybody. We haven't had any clients decline to give us a watch because they insisted on a reserve. Once they understand our logic of why we do things no reserve, and look at the track record that we have, which is basically 50 lots deep right now, like, you know, the market is sufficiently big that I feel like the right prices are always achieved. Now, if your expectations are unreasonable, you might be disappointed, but I think that, you know, the market always achieves like the correct price, you know? You asked about, you know, if I were to give a pitch to a client, why to consign things with us. It's because we, I think, do a good job of trying to represent the information to the buyer. Like when you deal with a traditional auction house, and many people have said this in, you know, podcasts and whatnot, it's like really the auction house is looking out for the consigner. They're not really like looking out for the purchaser. We try to have a balanced approach in that we represent the watches as best as we can, as neutrally as we can. And also we're open for commenting, which is not new to the auction model online, but it's new to like watch auctions. And so that, you know, like, look, if you see something that we don't, or you have questions, you're free to ask on the listing. Everybody can see that, you know, and, you know, we want to provide like a balanced approach between the consigner and the seller. And then most importantly, you know, a typical regular auction house, there's 2 things that could have been made more efficient by our model. The first thing is the time period that it takes to turn something around. You know, look, when somebody is consigning a steel 1518 at auction, they can certainly be okay with the time because there's a big reward payoff, right? So this, whatever, $10 million watch, whatever it is, from the time of consignment until when you actually get paid, a lot of times it can be 6 to 9 months, like a really long time, you know? And you have to remember that in a normal auction, you know, I don't know what percentage, but a big percentage of it is things like a yellow oyster perpetual, a steel Daytona. I mean, if you're consigning like a 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 watch, how does it make sense to wait 6 to 9 months to get paid? You know,
how come? I've never consigned with auction houses. How come it does take that long sometimes?
Well, because, you know, you have to get the things done before the cataloging is finalized. then there's a print catalog, then there's like a road show, and then after the auction, it's like 45 days to get paid or whatever. You factor all these things in, like it can take like a long time, you know?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, 6 to 9 months is really like a long thing, but even in a best case scenario, I would say like a minimum of 3 or 4 months, you know? With our model, like, look, with the pipeline of things and the way we do them, you know, it might take 2 or 3 weeks to get listed on the site from when we receive the watch. Then when it's listed, our listings now run 7 days.
Yeah.
And then usually like people pay very promptly within a week, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we pay out, you know, the week after we get paid. So the turnaround time, you know, in a worst case situation, maybe like a month or so. In a best case situation, it's like a few weeks.
Yeah.
So it's a lot shorter. The other thing is like the fees, right?
Yes.
Between the buyers and sellers fees, it's not uncommon that an auction house gets almost like a third of the proceeds, you know?
Yeah.
There's 26% buyer side, and sometimes there's some fees associated with the consignor, right? Our model is basically a $500 flat fee for no reserve auctions to the consignor, and then 10% on the buyer side. The $500 to the consignor, it's not really like a profit center, if you will. We do like very high grade professional photography. We write the descriptions. We include, you know, like an insured shipping to get the item to us safely. So these are all like kind of, you know, it's really just to cover the costs of doing business on that side. And really like what you see on the site, like the hammer is what you get out of it. And then we charge 10% as a fee to the buyer, you know?
Yeah.
So you go from almost giving up a third of the proceeds between the buyer and the seller, and it's really like 10% on our side.
Yeah.
The model is very transparent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies first, Long.
I'm just on the site now, and I just have to say, like, first thing I think about is, I'm not sure if this is deliberate, but everything from the font and the layout and the way it's done with the timer and everything, it just feels really young and fresh. And it kind of feels, and it kind of makes you, yeah, it's very clean and it's user friendly. And you kind of want to, and you're watching the timer. So you're kind of like, okay, I want to get onto this, right? Was this all deliberate, or there was a lot of editing that
we went through? A lot of, you know, the designers that we work with, like I said, they're super top. And, you know, when they present things to us, it's like, there's this collaborative effort where we tell them a bunch of stuff of how we see it, how our business is existing, what we see in like the watch world, what we like, and all these things. And they come and propose us a bunch of ideas, and then we go back and forth and settle on something that both parties like, you know. I am really particular about fonts. We purchased like a license for some special fonts that we liked, especially for the website. So these are not like Times New Roman or anything like that. And, you know, like the goal we had of it is like, what do we like about auctions right now? We like paper catalogs. We love thumbing through a catalog. And I think it's something tangible and really nice. Part of the what went into the design of our website was that we wanted to give an experience kind of similar like an auction catalog, but with some things of like, you know, a little bit of animation, you know, like little things that are more like digital. So when you're looking at the site, like let's say on an iPad, right, it kind of feels like you're using an actual like catalog. And that was like a really deliberate thing, you know, like from the grid layout of the thing to the individual listings, we wanted to have like a journal / catalog kind of feel to it.
My question is, you said you're not competing with the auction house, but you know, with all the advantages of using your site, surely, you know, as a, let's say I'm a consigner and it isn't like the 24.99s or a specifically, you know, top lot. It is a stainless steel Rolex, you know, which is sub 10K. It does make no sense for me to wait 6 to 9 months to get paid. Surely, you know, it could be that there'll be a 2-tier system where, you know what, like all the more affordable stuff is done on loupethis, and the really, really special stuff maybe is resorted to auction house, or maybe the auction house sees, well, this is probably more likely, that, oh wow, this is actually something that is working, we can actually try this as well, right?
I mean, look, the pie is very big. The ocean's very big. Like there's space for everybody. You know, we are a small fish right now, but I really believe in the model of how we do things, and I think that look, am I still going to be buying, selling, and consigning with the traditional auction houses? I absolutely will be continuing to do business with them. But I see, you know, like both models can kind of like coexist, you know, and it's up to the auction houses if they need to work on some of the inefficiencies in the model. Just like for us, when we start running and, you know, we look at this in the rear view mirror, like 6 months in, a year in, 5 years in, whatever, you know, I'm sure there's going to be certain tweaks to our model or things that we have to change. But I think, like, you know, it's just a different way of doing business. And, you know, for my partner and I, this is how we see a like the auction model that we would want to use and build ourselves, which is what we did, you know.
For sure.
So
For sure. I think for myself, it's very refreshing in what you said earlier, like Eric, you're trying to establish an equilibrium between the market and the really, yeah, like the market and the buyer. But my next question is kind of about the market. I'm a very much of a newbie in this scene. But over the past like year or so, I have seen a few brands pop up, such as I mean, like you're a longtime collector of Cartier and vintage pieces, but recently, like they have just become so hot and high in demand. And the same thing with Daniel Roth. What is it that you? So two questions. First, why are you such a strong advocate for brands such as Cartier? And then the second is, with this boom in demand, does that change your perception towards the brand in any way?
so specific to Cartier, I've really been interested in the brand for quite some time. And I always, you know, we had talked in the earlier episode, I made some comment about, you know, in-house movements versus like ETA movements or whatever, right? Um, the beauty of a watch to me, like at the end of the day, I think most people collect watches because it's like a beautiful object. It's like a piece of
Yeah.
artwork. And I'm not looking at the movement per se all the time. I appreciate the merits of like a really finely made movement. But at the same time, these are design objects, which is why we like them. And I think that's Cartier's strong suit, you know. They are unabashedly a jewelry house, designing jewelry, and watches are an extension of that. And it's all about the design as opposed to like the complications or whatnot. Cartier tank is over 100 years old right now. And if you had a time machine and brought like a new tank back 100 years and showed somebody, they would know that it's a Cartier tank, and vice versa. I mean, these designs are truly timeless. And, you know, look, Rolex and Patek Philippe at the turn of the 20th century, they started making wristwatches, but mainly they were like kind of like small ladies' watches or whatever, right? But Cartier really kind of invented the men's watch, in my opinion, at the dawn of that era. And they will always have that. I mean, you know, if you have an ad campaign, it's like the 100th anniversary of the tank or the tank Centray or something, right? Nobody else can really like claim that, because when Rolex starts saying, hey, this is the 100th anniversary of the Submariner, the tank is like 200 years old or 150 years old or something, you know? And, you know, really, really great design is like classic. You look
Yeah.
at furniture, right? Like, I don't know, Prouvé furniture made in like the 1940s and 50s and whatnot. It's just as relevant now as it was in those days, you know? And I think that's like Cartier design. It's just great design from that era that has transcended the trends of, you know, different time periods and is always classic. And I think that's a really important thing. And again, if you look at it, the success that Cartier has had, especially in the recent years, is I think due to the appreciation that collectors have for this, and that the design is really classic and timeless. And just like everyone would like to have a Submariner in their repertoire, everybody would like a nice Cartier tank as well.
Yeah. So do you
I have a question.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, my question was, you talk about watches as an aesthetic item and how we all appreciate them through the aesthetics. I would agree, even when we look at a movement, sometimes we're actually appreciating the aesthetics of the movement rather than necessarily the function. But
Sure.
Are there any situations where you would put the movement first? As in you grade that higher when you're assessing a particular watch or collection?
I mean, like, you can look at something like a Dufour Simplicity, for example. It is a very simple watch. It's very beautiful, but it's like very simple. But the magic of that watch is when you turn it over and look at the movement, There's two magical things about that watch. One is when you look at the movement, appreciate all the, like the hand finished aspects of it, the anglage, the Côte de Genève, all these type of things, right? And then the other thing on that is the tactile sensation, meaning when you're winding that watch, there's like a click mechanism or whatever that like they find in pocket watches that makes like a really loud like sound and also like a kind of a tactile feel while you're winding it. Like those are the two things that come to mind when I think of like a Simplicity versus like when I said with a Cartier, I'm thinking about the design. The simplicity is in the beauty of the finishing of the movement and also like the tactile sensation of, something simple, just like winding the watch.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. While we're on the topic of Dufour, I just want to really bring it up. Like, how we were saying in the previous episode, how like, it's a community and then like things travel fast and sometimes you have watches that show up like in auctions and that make all the people talk about it. Like just recently, I think yesterday, like a Collected Man launched the Sonnery, right, that sold for how much was it, like 7.7?
it was listed for 7 point something. Yes.
Yeah, listed for 7 point something. For you, like for someone like you, right? Because okay, I'll talk about myself first, and we've talked about this amongst ourselves privately. Like I personally don't know if it's worth that much. I don't know the aspects that are considered when you look at that watch that makes it worth 7.5 million. But then I just want to know, just very, very basic, like raw impression for you when you first saw that, like be it their website or their listing or their post. Like, what was the first thought that you had when you saw it?
I mean,
and I'm not talking about the watch. I'm talking about like everything, the entire package.
I saw like last week, towards the end of the week, like Silas had posted something kind of like a cryptic thing, like, oh, like save this date or something kind of interesting. I thought it was going to be like launching a collaboration, like, it's kind of the new thing for people to do right now.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I've handled one of these watches before.
Yeah.
I'd seen them gone at auction a couple times. It's a really, really great watch. I think the price that it was posted at is quite spectacular. I imagine they got something close to that. I don't know, but I mean, I think it was just a brilliant play on their side, and kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it was an exciting thing, but I don't know. Somehow I wasn't like that moved by this. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, right? Like going back to my previous question about the market, like what does something like this happening reflect on the current market situation?
This is like unquestionably like a unicorn and the pinnacle for many people. We always have like previously, you have collectors that like they could be into just independent brands, or they could be into like Rolex or Cartier or whatever. And I'm certainly not the first, but I always thought that kind of like collecting wise for myself, like variety was like the spice of life, right? So
Mm.
you had all these people that were like, oh, I only collect independents, I only collect Rolex and whatever. And I think for those people that are of that camp of like, I only want to collect like the best, regardless of what brand it is. I
Mm.
mean, this is like a holy grail for them, you know. This
Mm.
is like if somebody's into like big game hunting, it's like I don't want to just like hunt a rhino. It's like I want to hunt like this albino rhino that's like the only one in the world, you know. I mean, this is like that caliber of a thing. And you know, the
Mm.
truth is there hasn't been a sonnery publicly sold in the modern era, so to speak, of collecting.
Mm.
And you know, you can search online. There was a white gold one, I think in 2008, that Christie's sold, and it went for I don't know 300,000 or 400,000 Swiss francs, which is a lot,
Mm.
but not out of line. And you know,
Mhm.
whether this is worth 7 million or not now, I don't know. But you know, there's certainly a lot of pent up demand for a watch like this, and you know, with so many wealthy collectors out there, kind of with like deep, endless pockets, it's not inconceivable that it did sell for this. You know?
Mhm.
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 Yeah.
I'm just thinking like while we're on the topic of collecting, um,
Oh,
you know,
sorry,
yeah,
Jacqueline. One thing I wanted to point out
go
is,
ahead.
as a funny side story, I bought my Simplicity for $75,000 before they really jumped in price.
Yeah.
And when I bought it for that price, I ran into somebody that I knew in Geneva at a restaurant, and they were a watch person, and they pulled a yellow gold sonnery out of their pocket and like, check this out. And I don't know, it might have been this one that they sold, but at that time, I asked how much the price was, and they said they wanted 700,000. And I imagine thinking like, I would never pay 700,000 for this watch, but you know, like it's just, you know, now apparently it's worth 10 times more. You know.
That was just like completely by accident. Like you were there for a restaurant eating, and then someone saw it, and then
Yeah, like so this guy who I won't name, but you know, he's kind of like a watch industry person, but not somebody that is always like at the in the auction room like I always see. So I knew him, but I was like surprised to see him there at the same time. And then like I said, it was at a I don't know, it was like Brasserie Lip or one of these French bistros, and then he just like pulled it out of his pocket and showed me. And I was just like, what the heck? This is like the most insane thing, you know?
yeah. Do you have other like insane stories like that, like things that you've run into or things that you've seen that is just
There's a
like
lot of great stories. I remember one time I saw a guy wearing a wife beater on the MTR at Mongkok Station, and he was wearing a Sky Moon tourbillon on his wrist.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to say, how do you know it's real?
You know, like I think a Sky Moon is very difficult to like successfully craft like a fake of. I mean, like, you
Uh-huh.
know, some things like if you're like a watch nerd, right? You can look at
Yeah.
the stitching on the strap and know, you know what I mean? Like a lot of
Yeah.
times you see somebody from like 20 feet away wearing like some Richard Mille that, you know, 20 feet
Yeah.
away, you can't tell if it's real. Then you look
Yeah.
closer, like this is like a really shitty looking strap. Like this can't be real. You know what I mean? So it's not just about the watch. There's like other stuff like around it. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
then like the guy on his other
Yeah.
wrist, he was wearing like, you know, like a bracelet of like big ass like agar wood beads that I know was like just as expensive as the watch, you know. So the guy just had the look. Like he didn't seem like a guy that would wear a fake one.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think okay. I'm gonna say something and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I honestly think that at this point, because you've seen so much and you've handled so much, do you at this point, like, would you say you are having like the most fun with not chasing the hype per se and just doing what you really want to do? And I'll give you an example that really left like in the memory in my head was I am currently consigning a commission piece, commissioning a piece with Atelier de Chronométrie
Yep.
in Spain. And
Sure.
then I saw that you had posted that you commissioned a bracelet, just
Yep.
a bracelet
Yep.
for remind me which watch
It's like a
that was
vintage
for.
Breguet chronograph.
Yeah, for a vintage briquet. And I saw that and I was like, Eric is just having fun at this point, because like people can say like originality and whatever, but for you to like go to the length, I don't know how long it takes to like make a bracelet or commission or design it, but for you to do that for a watch, like as an like an added side quirk, I think that's really fun, right? It's like there's some quirkiness to it, right?
So first off about that story, Santi is like a really great person to work with. He's one of the principals behind the brand. And you know, you see in a lot of vintage watches like these beautiful mesh bands. And this is really like a lost art form. Like not very many people can make these things anymore. And I can unequivocally tell you that that is one of the most like well-made bracelets like I'd ever seen. And they did such a great job. And you know, the backstory about that is I'd gotten this vintage Breguet, which is quite an important watch, and it came with its original bracelet, but it's super long, right? And those are not adjustable. So obviously, like I can't just like cut that bracelet. It's like ruining the watch, kind of, you know. So that's when I came up with the idea of having them make a bracelet for me. And you know, like they again are one of the very few people in the world that can still make like mesh bracelets. And during the process of them making it, he sent me many photos of them like on the bench, showing the wire like being cut and then like woven together and the sides done, you know, like all these type of things that, you know, really allowed me to feel like I was part of the process of creating that bracelet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And their attention to detail is really, really great. You know, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And am I having a lot of fun? Like I am. I mean, I think you know, life is about, you know, you work hard, but also like it's important to be like enjoying what you do, you know?
Yeah.
The things that excite me right now are not necessarily a I don't know, $7 million watch or whatever.
Yeah.
But the things that I take joy in, both for myself and for selling to people, is like I've realized that condition is the paramount thing for me. You know, whether it's a $5,000 watch, a $50,000 or a $500,000 watch, I get really excited when I see something in really exceptional condition. And you know, things like this has been validated many times through prices that things sell for. For example, I think one of the early lots that I listed on loupethis was a 16700 GMT, which is like a mid 1990s GMT1 model. And this one, you know, like in the trade or whatever, it's probably a wide range. It's something that sells between $10,000 and $15,000. I happen to have one that was like brand new, full green sticker on the back with the gold on it, like never worn, super mint, right? And at the end, I mean, it even exceeded my expectations by a lot. The watch hammered at I think like $38,000. And I think that is collectors understanding the rarity of exceptional condition pieces and valuing them appropriately.
Yeah.
Another, like one of the first lots was a 1665, like it's a plastic crystal, like an early sea dweller. It wasn't a double red, it was a white dial one, but it had like, again, it was really exceptional condition. The enameling on the back of the case, like 80% of it was still there. And it was really, you know, an exceptional piece. And that's a watch that typically sells for $20,000.
Yeah.
And again, this one brought like, I think all in, it was like 45 or 44 or something, you know?
Yeah, I
Right.
remember. I
So-
remember looking at this post, and some guy wrote on your post. You
Yeah,
know, one of
wrote
these
something
trollers.
shitty,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. He wrote
like,
something
what are
shitty. He
you
was like,
bragging
"Why
about?"
why are you bragging about like this
Yeah.
guy paid like way over excess, blah blah blah."
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
But I think
exactly.
my comment to that was something along the lines of like, hey, if you don't understand quality and why this is worth more than a normal one, you know, like that's on you, you know, which is the truth. I mean, you know, we post things generally that like, you know, all of us like on our Instagram, it's something noteworthy that we would like to share, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a meal we're having, like a watch or whatever, something. And you know, to me right now, like my jam, so to speak, is condition. You know? I think it's like the
Yeah.
most important thing, whether it's a cheap, moderate, or expensively priced watch.
Yeah. Okay, two questions. So what is it that
Oh
you're
wait, I think Lung Lung has a
Oh yeah,
question
Long
here.
Long. Yeah, go ahead.
This is a quick one. I was just wondering if is there anyone that you have met that you didn't want to sell a watch to, even though they wanted to buy from you, but you're just like, no, I don't want to sell to this person.
Yeah, you're gonna fuck the watch up.
There are, I mean, like one thing, and I think many dealers have this pet peeve, is like I get a lot of inquiries from people that begin with like, what's like the best investment to buy?
Yeah.
You know,
Mm,
I really want to sell watches to people that love them. And I mean, look, at the prices that these things are, like for example, that Dufour Sonnery,
Yeah.
you know, you can't avoid the financial question, but it's really inelegant for me when people like this is the first thing that they think about. Like, what do I buy that is going to go up in value or whatever, right? And in my
Mhm.
mind, like when people ask these type of questions, I'm always thinking like, would you like free money? Like, do you want me to give you like free money or like what is this? You know what I mean? And I will tell you from firsthand experience when I was a lot more inexperienced at this, you know, and you are trying to sell things to people and, you know, whatever, you're trying to be a good salesperson, right? Kind of like some of the people in the dealers in China, for example, or in anywhere, they're like, oh, this is a great investment. You're buying this, like, this is a limited edition. It's really rare. It's going to go up in value, right? Like, you know, if you want an investment, you invest in equities, you invest in all sorts of things, but you know your primary investment in buying watches is your passion and enjoyment, and then you know secondary thing can totally be you know capital preservation or eventual appreciation. But you
Mhm.
know if that's the main reason why you're buying watches, like you should not be buying watches.
Yeah.
Mhm. Agree.
That's my
agree.
big pet peeve.
I agree. And we've heard a few people come on our show talk about just how often they get asked the question, oh, like what do you recommend as the best investment piece? So you probably also get asked a lot. And my question is, how do you usually respond to that without being rude? Or like
I mean, as cheesy and as cliched as it sounds, it's like the best investment is the watch that you like the most, which is why you're wearing it on your wrist, you know?
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like,
Mhm.
it's really a weird thing if you think about it. Like, the three of you, I'm sure, like, if I'm like, hey, what's your favorite watch? You could probably readily come up with, like, oh, I love this watch or I love these two or whatever, right? You don't think of, like, this is the one that's, like, going up in value the most. And somebody coming
Mhm.
to me asking, like, hey, what watch should I buy? That's like, I don't really like watches, but what do you think? Like, give me a advice like a financial advisor would give me, you know? But
Mhm.
watches are about personal taste and style, right? So
Mm.
are you just telling me right off the bat, like I have no taste or style, or like I don't know like what I like, you know?
You
Yeah.
just say like, get a 5/7-Eleven at retail, but don't ask me how. I can't get it for you.
Exactly. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, and then like, you know, like some people will try to hide this question, like, hey, what watch can I buy and put it away for 5 years? And like, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
yeah.
The thing is,
But
like, even if you did know, yeah, why would you be sharing it?
Sure.
Like,
And I mean, I will
seriously,
say,
like, why would I be
true.
telling you?
I will say up until recently, right? You know, as a collector of independent watches, which I have been, that really is an investment in passion, and it's an investment in the maker, because you're basically like it's like in the old days when you're like a patron of like some artist, right? You're
Mm.
paying
Mhm.
them and buying stuff to allow them to make another watch for somebody else or something like that, right?
That's another
And
reason why I say you're having a lot of fun, because you're getting all these like commission pieces made, right? And then you
yeah,
even like got a piece with your name on the dial from I
yeah,
think
yeah. Another
Nakagawa.
Japanese, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah, 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 yeah.
exactly.
So like do you just as from a collector's perspective, like what is it that attracts you to independence? Is that exactly what you said? Like it feels cool to, you know, actually commission and feels like a patron of the old ages, or do you actually enjoy the collaborative process? Because like independence aside, you've also been you know, making some one-offs with like bigger brands such as Cartier.
Sure.
So what is it that you take away from that process, and what do you think about, I mean, like, I'm telling you, there are so many people who are jealous of the pieces that you're making because they feel like, wow, like I wish I could be Eric with like all these, the prices of Cartier being going so up, so high quickly, and then you're making one-offs that establish and express a part of yourself. And I mean, you did one with your college colors. um yeah.
Yeah. So with the independence, it's like, for whatever reason, if I find some sort of merit in the brand or the maker, like I like the person, I met them somehow, or there's something behind the brand that I really appreciate. Um, that's why I order those type of pieces. I, like I was saying before, with independence, really an investment in your passion and pleasure, because historically speaking, financially, these have been like very bad investments, but it's just something that you like, it's for yourself.
Yeah.
And that is the angle that kind of, that I appreciate about that. With the Cartier thing, again, it was something that, I don't want to say like fell into my lap, but it was something that grew out of like a natural kind of a thing where I had had the chance to meet and interface with some people from the brand, and I expressed my enthusiasm to them, which they obviously saw as like a genuine enthusiasm. And it opened up some doors for me to have some like really interesting things made.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and to their credit, for like a really large brand like Cartier to have a program like this, I mean, this is really a special thing.
Yeah.
I won't get into the exact dollars and cents of things, but I will say that if you are granted the ability to, like, make kind of like a
A one-off.
bespoke or like a
Yeah.
tailor-made piece for yourself, it's not like you're paying, significantly more or anything than like a normal one. Like, this is really, like, I think the people that have access to this type of program, this is like it's almost like a gift from the brand, if you will. I certainly don't have any intention of like selling these pieces that I commissioned myself, and I can't speak for other people, but really it's like an acknowledgement that you are a supporter of the brand. And it's like that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You also, I'm just trying to remember, because we were talking about this before the podcast. And then Long actually brought up a good point. Like, you are a very strong advocate for vintage Cartier. How do you think, like, I know we talked about the design already, but like, are there any differences that, I mean, obviously like modern and vintage, but then the design wise, like, we'll just take the Crash for example. I know you have the both, I mean, you have a lot of the original London crashes, and then you also have the reissue of
Sure.
the Bond Street crash. When you compare those side by side, I'm not asking you to take favorites, but then just from like a very subjective objective standpoint, like, what do you think about the reiterations and reissues?
So, in the early days, Cartier, there was like New York, London, and Paris, and they were actually run kind of like autonomous companies. And it was only, whatever, in the early 1980s or mid 1980s that Richemont, Vendome, and they kind of like recombined back together and became one company again. So at the time, in the early days, each one was run by like different members of the family. And the most interesting to me was Cartier London. And the reason is that there's something very interesting about the British way of like crafting things, or craftsmanship, the English way, if you will. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, if you look at two London crashes, the shapes are never identical. And the reason is like, contrary to normal manufacturing techniques, it's like you have a mold, or like you press the thing and then they're made off of a line. Like London watches were all made like one at a time. And
Yeah,
this
there's
is a
so
very
much character to
there's
these pieces.
this is a very like romanticized like view of this, but it's like I see like a guy wearing like an apron, like smoking a cigar and like with like a piece of gold on an anvil, like hammering stuff and like doing things like kind of one at a time. And although it's not exactly that, like that's kind of how things in like the UK were crafted. You could take a deployant clasp from a London watch, and then you could have like, a deployant clasp. There's like two pieces, like the two sides of the blade, right? You could have two same model watches and two deployant clasps,
And they won't work.
remove them at the pin, and they won't work with each other because they were all made like one at a time, So that's a horribly inefficient way of making things. But as a collector, like this is something really like bespoke and handmade, and there's something very like quaint and charming about that way of manufacturing things. That
So
coupled
cool.
with the fact that, in the 1960s, whatever, swinging London, this designer Rupert Emerson that worked for Cartier London, there were a lot of like innovative geometric shapes, like
Yeah.
really funky things that, like that came out of the London workshop that are really unique. The Crash being the most famous of them, but also more exaggerated versions of like the asymmetric, octagonal watches, like really weird things that, a lot of them are kind of unique things that you don't really see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your collection is insane, dude.
It makes me
Like,
wonder, like, how much is actually shown and how much is hidden. Because I
yeah.
swear, like the stuff that isn't being shown is always the better stuff, man.
I mean, I went through like a phase of like, I just love Cartier stuff. And as you guys all know, like vintage things, there's like very few available out there. There's very limited supply of vintage things. And one thing you have to remember too is that in the early days of watch collecting, like in the 1980s and 90s, it's like Cartier was one of the main things that people collected.
Yeah.
If you flip through like an old
Yeah.
80s Antiquorum catalog, a Cartier Cintré in platinum, like a Grand Cintré from the 20s or 30s, at that time, it was already like $300,000. And that's how much they're worth now. And it went through this lull where that stuff is very limited. There were very few produced first off. And then, it's like the prices started out really high. They dipped down, but not necessarily because the market collapsed, but just because there just wasn't a lot of stuff out there. And only now are some of those things like coming onto the market again and are commanding really strong prices again. So, it's one of those things that's been collected for a long time. And I think, again, being not necessarily a watch collector's watch brand, Cartier appeals to a lot of other people, like jewelry collectors, collectors of like objects and stuff. I mean, you meet a lot, like this is like a funny thing, but I've met some kind of like older people that are just like connoisseurs of all things fine and not watch collectors, yet having interesting things like, the wife wears a Cartier Crash or the husband wears like a Cintré. These are not even watch people, but these are just really great design objects that transcend like pigeonholing into like a watch collector. It's like, whatever, those beer commercials with the most interesting man in the world or whatever, right? Like guys like that always wear like Cartier, like Auro, John Goldberger. I mean, the guy just like reeks of like taste and whatever. And, it's always like a Cartier on the wrist.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up with one last question. We were talking about conditions earlier, and my two questions for you at the time were like, you obviously own some really cool stuff, and like we'll just take Cartier London for example. Like I think of the ones that you've shown online, the condition has just been spectacular. So how do you go about seeking out like the condition that you want, and what's like really next for you? Because I'm genuinely curious about this. I know you're into like indies and you're having fun, but then of the vintage world, like what are the pieces that you're still kind of chasing?
I mean, there's always treasures out there to be discovered. Putting like that Indiana, like the things that excite me the most are always discovering something that we didn't know about before. And even though those discoveries are few and far between these days, they still happen. You know, something really interesting is a couple of years ago, I found this weird Rolex, which I posted about on Instagram. It's a model and reference number that is like not known to like the collecting community at large. And it's called like the Transcontinental. It has a rotating bezel with like a really weird pattern on it that when you first look at it, you're like, this could not be made by Rolex. But then when you look closely and look at everything, you're like, this could only be made by Rolex, you know? So just discovering new things is always like an interesting aspect of this business and hobby. What's next for myself? I mean, I have a few kind of like cool things that I've commissioned that I'm waiting for that will be surprises for when they come that I'll be happy to share with people. And yeah, I mean, you never know what tomorrow brings, you know. It's always like a new exciting day ahead. You know.
So. I think like aside from you, your wife has also like an epic collection, by the way.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that she's a very tolerant spouse of what I do, and you know, she has a great eye for collecting things. And yeah, she's been able to acquire a lot of nice things along the way, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we'll jump into the reversal round again. Do you have like 3 questions for
Okay.
us?
I'm gonna try to ask the 3 of you not watch related questions, okay? So I will start with Long this time. What is your favorite restaurant to eat at in Hong Kong? And it doesn't have to be like, you know, like a 3-star Michelin. It could be, you know, whatever, something, you know, small and quaint.
We're gonna be here.
But only one.
Yeah.
Only one.
Yeah.
Don't say you have many. I want to know like the one singular.
No, I know. Like this is easy. It's not even from Hong Kong. It's a Thai food. I brought you down. It's like that boat noodle place. Yeah. It's on Wan Chai. I can't remember the name, but it's just Thai boat noodles. And every time people come to Hong Kong, they're like, where are you going to bring me? And they get so disappointed because we end up at that Thai boat. Yeah. And they're like, I thought we're going to eat Hong Kong food, like Cantonese food. No, but this is consistent. This, it's just consistent and it's chill.
It's good atmosphere as well.
Yeah.
There's
I feel like,
there's a place in LA in the States here that's like a little strip mall in like Little Thailand area, whatever, that also makes a really great like boat noodle. So when you said that, that's like great.
You know, there's a really authentic place in LA, right beside Griffith Observatory. It's like in like a gas station, and
what do they serve?
Thai food.
Oh, okay.
A friend recommended me to go there, and I was like, this is super random. You walk in and there are like posters of the king everywhere, and then he was like, yeah, you only go to like places with the posters of the king, or else it's not authentic. It's like the middle of a gas station, and it's so good. I'll find out the name and I'll send it to you. I forget, but it's beside Griffith.
The one that I'm talking about is called Pa Ord, but it's in like Little Thailand. I don't think it's the same one, but
no, it's definitely not the same one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Jacqueline, tell me about what's your favorite seafood restaurant in Boston or around the Boston area?
Seafood restaurant.
Yeah. You know, like a Lobster Shack or something like that, whatever. I mean, you know, or no, what's your favorite clam chowder in Boston?
Oh.
Or do you even like clam chowder?
I love clam chowder. Love clam chowder. But does it have to be Boston though?
Because... No. Okay, fine. We'll expand your horizons here.
Okay. There's a really good clam chowder place in Vancouver Island. And it's like every time I go, it's like drinking my childhood, because it's like, if you were to ask me what's the first thing that I remember having in Canada after I came here, it's that clam chowder. and it's served, you know how like some clam chowders are served in like well, just a bowl. It's served in like this vessel that's it's almost like pot pie, and then they
Yep.
have this puff pastry that they bake on top of the
Is it a Western restaurant or like a Chinese style
it's
one?
not even a restaurant, it's just a stand that sells
Okay.
pot pies and
Okay.
soups. So what you do is you go there, you get you never do takeout because you can't take out the ceramic like bowl.
What is this place called?
I don't know.
What about the boat restaurant?
All these places we don't know.
What is the boat noodle restaurant called?
I can't remember, but I can tell you if you're a watch. Wait, listen.
This is when
Okay,
you
so
know
I'll
it's
give
good.
you-
Never-
You don't
I'll
know
give
we
you
it's
a
know-
good.
second. Listen, I'll give you a second best option. If you're a watch person, go and stay at Bangkok. Go and stay at Park Hyatt. Park
Yeah.
Hyatt is connected to a mall that has paddock and it has AP.
Yeah.
So from the hotel, you go and have a boat noodle there that's famous. You will always hear Singaporean people are there. Like Singaporean people always find good food. And then you go downstairs and you start watch shopping and they have a lot of stock. Okay, but this is like 1 year ago. They have a lot of stock. And you know, there's a lot of great Thai collectors. So even just
Yeah.
walking
Yes.
throughout the mall, you're like, oh my God, there's an AP perpetual there. There's an RM there.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, to me, it's just an ideal spot. You park yourself there and you just go up and down the building.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But you
Yeah.
know what I mean, Eric? It's like
Yeah.
because I know exactly where it is and I go like when I enter that building, I don't look at anything. I just look at the the glass. Like I don't care what the name is. I just go line up and then I get it. But if you want to know, I'll get it for you. But how you eat it is like you get it and then you use your little spoon and then you
Yeah.
pop the puff pastry inside the clam chowder and then you drink it that way. So good.
So the reason why I was asking if it was like a Western or like a Chinese thing, like
Oh, it's a Western thing. It's
yeah,
definitely
when I was a kid and I'd go to Taipei, right? Like on Sundays, like like the fancy like Sunday restaurant, we'd always go to eat steak at this place in Taipei. It's still around actually, and the people there are the same from when I was a kid. But there's like a steakhouse called like Hongwu, which is like my home, whatever, and like that Chinese westernized food. It's always like this kind of like course thing. So it's like the steak comes out on like a sizzling plate. Like
Yeah.
you start with like crudités of like, you get like 3 carrot sticks and a cucumber or something, and then
And one broccoli.
the soup, right?
Yeah.
And it's always like
a parsley
haijian
thing,
nongtang,
a little parsley
like
thing.
like a seafood, like a clam chowder, and it was done
Yeah.
exactly the same way in ceramic
Yeah.
ramekin with a puff pastry on top. So when you were
Yeah.
saying that, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is like the Chinese style thing or something.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Western thing. I mean, all the
And I
people-
remember when we went to that. I remember when we went to that Thai restaurant, and we had to wait. And it's like it's an open restaurant,
So
you can
long,
see everybody
yeah.
eating there, and we were waiting there. And I think we went next door to look. I don't know. I remember we did something like around that area, or I don't know what we were doing. Yeah, it was just a good atmosphere. Great
Mm.
time.
By
It
the
makes
way,
me like
that,
fucking hungry now.
wait, but that steak restaurant, it's become a chain and they still have it.
Yeah, the
then
main one
when
that
you-
I went
yeah.
to was like Zhongxiaodong Siduan, still there.
Oh.
Yeah, I still have like a VIP
Yeah.
card from there. I get 10% off. I've been eating there since I was like a little kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so keeping
Is this
on the
about food as well?
theme,
Yeah, I'll be
keeping on
racking
the
my
food
brain about
theme,
this.
Daniel. Okay,
Yeah.
so in the greater Shanghai area,
Mhm.
where are the best xiaolongbao?
Oh.
That's difficult.
Dude,
it's
that's
not
easy.
difficult.
So difficult.
It's
Ding
not
Tai Fung
difficult.
is
No,
Ding Tai
Ding
Fung
Tai
is
Fung's
so
a piece
good
of crap,
there.
man. Like,
No, it's so good.
no, Ding Tai Fung piece of crap. Like, okay, again, right? It's one of those restaurants that I don't know the name of.
Okay.
See?
Like,
See? Exactly.
I don't know the name of this restaurant, but I could definitely find out for you. And it was, I was taking that. Do you know why? Because like a lot of my friends are Shanghainese, yeah, so they've
Yep.
grown up around this stuff, and they were like, okay, we have to go here for xiaolongbao. When you say Ding Tai Fung, they're like, they just look at you in that way.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you think, okay, I'm
Oh,
never going to mention
come
that
on.
again.
It's not that bad.
It's like dressed up. What did Eric say? A bit like Emperor's clothes or something?
The emperor has no clothes.
Yeah, So there's this place, and it's like really kind of has that whole rundown look, totally run by the locals. So when you go in, you have to kind of do it in Shanghainese, right? Which I can't speak. And then my friends went there and they said, okay, we got all of this, and like okay, there's so many different varieties, you don't even know which one to go for. So I just left it to my friend, and it was just amazing, and it was, that they haven't changed the decor right for years, for many decades. And I would say that was the place, but I can
Is this one of these like long-standing, like old places?
Yes.
But
so it's not even in a mall.
like,
it's not even in a mall. It's not even it's on a street. You would just pass by it if you didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of the good places in Shanghai are like that, because they weren't any malls when this stuff was
word
good,
of mouth.
right?
People,
just word of mouth.
Yeah.
And
so when I first,
you just know by the menu
it
was going to be good.
Yeah.
When I first started going to Shanghai, like when I was in college, like maybe around 2000 or 99 or whatever, right? I I always loved Xiaolongbao from when I was like a kid. So then we would always go to like obviously it's like a chain because they're even in Tokyo right now, but Nanxiang Xiaolongbao, right?
What is it? Nan something?
I think
it's like
it's back on now.
Nanxiang Xiaolongbao.
Nanxiang Xiaolongbao.
Yeah, they're like the traditional one. They're in like the that temple like Wang Miao in Shanghai, And then that restaurant is really funny because you go to the one in Shanghai, there's 3 floors of the restaurant in varying degrees.
That's like Ichiran. That's like Ichiran.
But varying degrees of price. So you have the one that's like local, that's all like dumpy looking, but they make because like those come out first. That one, like you have to wait in line like an hour to go eat, and it's like really cheap, and you get like a thing of xiaolongbao and then like a dan pi tang, right? And then the floor on top, it's like where all the Taiwanese people go, which is like a middle ground one. And then there's the one on top, which is where all the like foreigners go. There's never a line because it's like 10 times the price,
Yeah.
But it's like pretty funny. Like I love xiaolongbao. So
really good ones are the soup is just bang on,
Yeah.
Like
all right,
really,
so all 3 of you recommended restaurants that you don't know.
we know.
Yeah.
We know.
Look, we're very consistent on this podcast, but I mean, I think it's because we also I personally just go to so many restaurants, right? And my main concern isn't the name of the restaurant, it's how to get there. So I'm always like, where's the address? Okay. I absolutely just forget the name. And in Shanghai, the turnover rate is so high on restaurants, ridiculous. So it's so rare that I will go to a place more than like 2 times. And I'll be going to some other place and Shanghai, again, as you know, Eric, is so big. It's constantly being developed. So it's not like, okay, same place but different restaurant. You're just not eating in the same place.
It's just gone. It's just gone. Next time
exactly.
It's just gone.
That's so different from how I operate. I keep going. If I find like a place that really like suits my taste, I keep going back to it. I'm a creature of habit. Like I feel like I'm cheating on the restaurant if I go to somewhere else. Like I'm like that. If I like something, I just keep ordering the same thing. It's boring, but it's
I only feel like that for McDonald's and KFC.
Okay.
Like those are the 2 that I regularly frequent, and I never dine in. Right, so they're always my takeaway go-to.
Low commitment but always satisfied.
I mean, I will say like a similar thing, but like my wife and I, like we used to spend like July in LA. Like I go rent a house for a month, and then this year, like we went down for, I don't know, 10-15 days or something like that. But another like restaurant that is so cheesy, but it's so cheesy that it's like kind of fun, is like we always end up going to like Mr. Chow's, which is basically like Panda Express Chinese food for like 35 times the price. So dinner for 2 people is like $200, but we know exactly what we're gonna order, and like it's actually like half decent, and it's like entertaining in its own way.
What is the really famous dish there? The chicken
Is it
skewers,
like General's chicken or
right?
something?
The
Yeah, the
chicken
skewers are
skewers?
not really
Yeah.
good. Like we always go for
Yeah,
like
I never liked that.
yeah, we go for like we start the appetizer. We get like they have like a mock shark's fin soup, which is basically like an egg white soup, which is always like nice. The honey walnut shrimp is always the second appetizer.
The shrimp,
So the main course, they do this like crispy beef, which is like really, it's just like fried things with there might not even be any beef in there, but it's like kind of tasty. And then like this crab dish, and then like the fried rice. And then if there's 3 people, we'll get like the duck or something like that,
Yeah.
Very westernized, but like enjoyable in its own way,
Yeah. Their lychee martini is pretty good. I don't know if you've ever.
Yeah. I always get blasted and have like 5 and then
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh well, okay. We'll just go straight into the pumpers around then.
Let's do it.
If there's like one food spot in Tokyo that you recommend, what would it be? Or like you're okay, if you like say you go to Tokyo and there's like you can only eat at one place that you've been longing to eat at.
So keeping on the theme of restaurants that you don't know the names to, but this will be easy to find. There was a while where I was always staying at the Grand Hyatt in Roppongi Hills.
Yeah.
In the side of Roppongi Hills, like in the development, under the Nanjiang Xiaolongbao there actually, there's a restaurant that's like a very like local, it's a Japanese restaurant, and all they serve is like grilled clams. So like they have like a charcoal, like, like a charcoal oven. And then, like big, like sea clams, right? They just grill them on the thing until they open up and they bring them out, and you pay like per clam. So I could sit there and pound like 20 grilled clams with like a beer. It's like the most simple, but like delicious thing. And every time I go, I have to go and eat there.
What does it taste like?
No, it's just like, like clams, right? It's just like a grilled clam. They put a little sake in there when it opens up, and it's like really fresh. I mean, I don't know, like.
Well, there is definitely skill to grilled stuff, isn't there?
There is. And it's a
skill to
guy
it.
sitting on like, the Bin Shotan, the thing, and then with like a little fan, and he's just like doing his thing. And it's very simple. And all they have is like that, and they have like shirasu rice, which is like white rice with like. Shirasu is like, those little baby anchovies that a lot of times it's like those things on top of the rice, and then like beer. That's like the only things they have on the menu. But it's like the clams are like unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
Wow. How much do you remember how much they charge? Like
like one clam is like, I don't know, it's like $2 or something, it's like fairly reasonable.
Yeah.
And being like Japanese, they're all like when I go and eat in China, right? I'm sorry to say, like, I'm very concerned about food safety half of the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
And like Japan, it's like they have all these things on the wall showing like the place that the clams come from, how pristine the water is, doing all these tests on the water to make sure that they're not polluted from like Fukushima, like all this stuff. Like it's just really clean and like, you know what I mean?
The Japanese way, yeah.
I used to think like that too. I'd be like so conscious about my stomach, but now I'm like, as long as it tastes good, I'll take the hit.
Yeah.
Even if it means I'm like on the toilet for like next 3 days. If it tastes good, I'm like, yeah.
Sure.
Be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Okay, so keeping with questions about Japan, I know you're a big like fan of Japanese like streetwear too, right?
Sure.
And like fashion accessories. What's your like favorite brand, or like what must shop like places that you
I mean, I think like I just really like Visvim a lot. I think they make really like quality clothes that don't look really flashy, but they feel really good when you're wearing them. They're like really nice thought out designs.
Oh, I wish this could be like another episode. I also am a big fan of Visvim. Like I mean, I found out Visvim through Kanye. Like I'm not ashamed to admit, but and then subsequently went to their little cloud cafe when I go to Tokyo. I mean, Visvim is like men's clothes, right? So I can't really find things that I can wear. They now have a women's section, but I've always just been a fan of their shoes. Like I wore them to, and again, they're moccasins, right? So it's not really something that you wear on a daily basis, but we always talk about breaking in a leather jacket or, breaking something in, like that's, if I can break in two pairs of shoes. One will be a Converse and one will be a Visvim, and then they
Sure.
would just like fit your foot so well. And because it's like suede and it's get dirty so easily, but yeah, I love Visvim.
I mean, that's the same thing about the clothing, because I actually was introduced to the brand. I was sitting on an airplane with the founder, like Hiroki. And I remember I was
no
like,
way.
I asked my wife, I was like, dude, this guy, like, I didn't even know anything about it at the time. I was like, this guy.
You
is,
sat
like,
next to
dressed
him?
like a row in front or something. And I asked my wife, I was like, hey, is this somebody famous? Because he's like dressed like really well and he just looks like he's like famous. And she's like, oh, like this is a designer or whatever. And then like I kind of like got into the brand after that, you know?
Oh my god, he's so cool. And his
Yep.
wife is also so cool. Their
Yep.
house, like
Yep.
the way they designed
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is yeah.
So I've been pretty lucky that they actually have a few stores in like LA. And then like before there was one like kind of an importer in the States selling. I mean, when I travel, I'm always in Japan anyways. But in the States-
Shiprock.
Yeah.
Right?
In the States, no, it's this place called Union in LA, and their prices were like triple what the normal Japan prices were. So I would never buy anything there. But now they open their own stores in the States, so like the prices are relatively the same.
Oh, I
you know?
didn't even know that they opened their own store.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yep.
Yeah. Are you a big fan of their robes?
You know, like I like them as objects, and I've actually, you know, they have like some really fancy things like from like like for example, like runway collection stuff, right?
Yeah.
Each piece is handmade, and the labels hand stitch, and Hiroki
and
signs
the
everything.
yeah, and the material they use, like the
Special
boro, is like
material,
a long, like hundreds of years old or something. Yeah.
I bought a few of those things and never worn any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John Mayer keeps a collection of them, so you can just also
Exactly.
just keep them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. You travel a lot. Like you if you could like recommend one place and then one hotel to stay at that like destination.
So, I mean, the most exciting place, like all around it, I still think like Hong Kong is always great. And it's nothing like really whatever, but I've been staying at Upper House in Hong Kong since they opened. I have my own corporate rate there, which I don't know if it's still valid since I haven't been there since COVID. But to me, like that's like my home in Hong Kong. The rooms are like really big. They feel really comfortable. Like I know all the people that work there. And when I'm in my like room, it just feels comfortable like home. When I travel, normally it's like for a very short period of time, like 2-3 nights maybe. And, you know, like when you're dealing with travel like that far away, obviously there's like a lot of jet lag and stuff, right? But like Upper House, it's like centrally located. Like when I'm off, I'm in my room like resting. And like when I'm on, like I go out and do my stuff, and it just like, you know, it's the perfect balance for me. So
is there a destination where you go that you just only go for vacation? And like because Hong Kong you might still work, anywhere? Right?
Oh, like
anywhere. Okay. Only go there as like a destination, like vacation spot where you don't really think about work.
Went there recently too. Like, I mean, my wife and I love like Amangiri in Utah. There's obviously no work there.
God.
Although I will tell you a really a quick watch related funny story. The first time we went to Amangiri, I was in the middle of buying a Patek Philippe 2499.
Yeah.
And it was coming from South America. It was fresh watch. And I had to deal with like all these like, you know, levels of dealers that were like, you know, selling to me and then somebody selling to him. And it was a really complicated deal. And you probably remember like the cell phone connection there is like terrible. And I was on this slot canyon excursion where there was absolutely no cell phone reception right in the middle of when I was like negotiating the price. And then I was like, I had to send a text message out and it wouldn't go out. So I had to like hold my phone up like this until I could get like one bar to send the text signal out. And I was like, just buy the watch, however much it costs, just buy the watch. Yeah. And then I was like, again, on vacation with my wife all day long, slot canyon excursion. Yeah. And I was all stressed out about this deal and couldn't know what the hell happened for like 7 hours until we drove out of the slot canyon. Yeah. And I didn't even know how much I paid and whatever. And then I think it was a shitty trip. I wasn't like a good companion because I was all annoyed by this. and like I just didn't enjoy the slot canyons.
So,
Like I
so you
should
didn't
have.
hold it down. You didn't pretend like you had to, like, because you're with your other half, like
It's
feel
kind
like
of
you have to be
difficult
involved and
sometimes.
be present, right?
It's kind of difficult sometimes. This was a really difficult one for me.
Yeah.
So that was like
Yeah.
a really tough one.
Yeah. But Amangiri is great. I'll just like add in a very quick like anecdote. It was like one of my favorite stories ever. My friend and I, we went at the right before COVID, right? Like before the shutdown started. We went during Valentine's Day because like it was the only time that we had time, and it was the weekend, and then for whatever reason the rates were pretty cheap for that hotel. So then we worked it out. I was like, okay, we're gonna split it in half and we're gonna stay there for a week. We might just make it work. It's justifiable. And
1 week, that's a long time to stay there.
yeah, we did it kind of like what yeah it would
Got boring towards the end, right? Come on.
no, let me tell. First of all, the food was free, right? Like you can eat whatever you want. No, I'm not kidding. It's free.
It's
all the
included. It's
drinks
all
are
included,
free.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're like pounding shrimp and this strawberry mint drink. Like the shrimp is so good. I'm telling you guys. And they serve like 3 giant prawns per plate. And then we just sit there at during dinner time and we just order shrimp after shrimp after shrimp. Okay. But anyways, 2 really funny things happened. First of all, because my friend is a girl and we went during Valentine's Day, like they thought we were a couple, and they treated us like very nicely with like gifts and cake and like all these really cutesy things.
Did you do the s'mores in the room?
Yes. Oh my God. And because like they thought we were a couple, right? And then they lined the bedroom with rose petals and like the candles, and then the bed, they made like a big heart because it was Valentine's Day. So anyways, we took a lot of funny selfies in that room. But then the funniest story is Eric was talking about the excursion in the canyons, right? So we got really bored towards the end, and like it was on Valentine's Day. I was okay, here's what we're gonna do. There are like horse riding trips. There's also like a yoga that's like $5,000 that you're gonna like fly in the helicopter and they bring you to the top of a boulder and then you do yoga there. Like I don't know, like 5,000 feet up the ground. Like, and so then we weren't gonna go that crazy. So we ended up doing this rock climbing. It wasn't even a rock climbing thing. Do you know what I'm talking about, Eric? It's like a very famous activity there.
Via Ferrata. It's like the
yes!
rock climbing. Like
oh my God, yes. Okay, so I'm sorry if I'm getting excited, but this is like one of my favorite stories ever. My friend is not very athletic, but I am very convincing with like going on activities and whatever, because I really want to do it. And yes, like I'm afraid of heights a little bit, but then when I asked the people at the hotel, I'm like, so how difficult is it? Like how high up are you? And she's like, no, it's really not that difficult. Like you just take a walk and there are 2 bridges that you cross and it's really fun. Like the whole trip, it's like 2 hours max if you just do it properly. And there's a tour guide, not tour guide, there's a guide with you all the time. Like she will or he will teach you all the time. And then I was like, okay, let's do it, Donna. And she's like, okay, you know what, whatever, like we'll do it. Who's the guide? Like how experienced is the guide? And then the person was like, actually there's a guided Tim Cook, like Tim Cook's when he went. So yep. We're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like if Tim went on it, like we can definitely do it. Like it's totally safe. So then we go on this thing, right? And you have to understand, from the hotel to the actual place that it takes place, it's like a hike, like, 20-30 minute hike. You have to actually, go there. And in the scorching sun, my friend is already like tired before we even started, right? And then as soon as we got to the foot of the boulder or of like the canyon or whatever, we looked up and then there were 2 harnesses waiting at the bottom of the foot, and we looked at each other. I was like, wait, I thought it was just gonna be like a walk. Like that's what the hotel said to us. Like we just walk across 2 bridges. And the person was like, yeah, well, you have to get up there first to walk across the bridge. I was like, that's true. So then we put on the harnesses, and then the guide starts teaching us how to you have to climb. I'm not kidding. Like you actually have to hold on to the rock, like, or the handlebar, unclip the safety gear, and then clip onto the next, because it's segmented. Like it's segmented by like 2 foot each. Like every foot you take, you have to unclip the thing and then clip it again. So if you didn't have a good grasp and then you unclip the thing, you might as well just like have fallen. So it's very dangerous. It's the exact opposite what the hotel told us. So then I looked at her, I'm like, are we gonna do this? And she was like, oh yeah, like we're already here, we already hiked it, so like we'll just do it. And then my friend started crying as soon as she started. And it's not a 2-hour trip. The whole trip took like 4 hours because she started just crying. I've never seen her cry before. And it was Valentine's Day. So
Man, you broke her heart.
Yeah. So like we were walking across to this bridge, and I just remember my friend like cursing at me, like, Jacqueline, I'm never gonna talk to you again. It's Valentine's Day. Why are you making me do this? And I just couldn't help but like feel really bad, but also laugh at the same time because I've never seen her like that. And the guide felt so bad and was like, you know what, do you mind? And again, you have to climb, right? And it's very scary. Like I'm pretty tall. I'm 178, but then like even I can't even reach the next handlebar. Can you imagine my friend? Like she actually has to jump, and we're on the side of a boulder. She has to jump to reach the handle. And then you go down the exact same way that you came up. So like when I'm going down, I literally have to like drop and then step on. It's very scary. So I just remember like, because she was so freaked out, the guide felt really bad and asked me, I was like, Jacqueline, do you mind like just finishing the trip by yourself? Like I'm gonna stay behind and look after your friend. Or like, do you mind going first? Usually the guide goes first to lead the way, but then she felt really bad for my friend. And then she asked me to go first. I was like, I don't know like how to go there. Like, how do you expect me? But then I felt so bad, and like my friend was crying, so I wanted to make her feel better. So I was like, okay, Jacqueline, you can do this. You just got to pretend as if it's no big deal. Like you just got to do it, and then like wave at her from the top and be like, hey, like I did it, come up. So I was doing that, but then while I was doing it, I was cursing at myself. I was like, why the hell did I get myself into this? Like, it was so scary. And anyways, the funniest thing is the way they advertised it to us. I still remember the front desk was like, oh yeah, like our top activities are these 3. And oh, do you like activity? Okay, this one, it's just, you know, a walk. A walk.
Yeah, I think in the thing it says like a beginner level or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like it could not have been more misleading. Anyways, I have a video of my friend crossing the bridge, clipped to like with the helmet, and then just like crying, tears rolling down, and then just cursing at me like, I'm never talking to you again. Like it's Valentine's Day. I don't even have a boyfriend. Why are you making me do this? Okay, yeah. Anyways, that's like my fun.
That actually reminds me of the time where I was with Long Long on that walk. Oh, you remember that walk? Yeah.
Where?
In Typho, right? And then we had to turn halfway through, and we said like on the map it said that it would take 2 hours. And we're like, it doesn't look like it's going to take 2 hours. And the sun was coming down. There's no lights, right? But the main thing as the sun's coming down, yeah, all these bugs are jumping around, like all these grasshoppers, like literally can like, you know, jumping into your face and stuff. And Long fucking hates bugs. Yeah. She's like, we're gonna turn back right now. I'm not, yeah, she's basically fuck you, I'm leaving. Yeah. Like, I'm not going walking with you ever again. Walk back, and we were in my mind again, I was like you trying to play it cool. Yeah. And I was like thinking, damn, I hope we get to the back to the front yet before it gets dark, because Lungler's just gonna go so upset, right?
Yeah. And my friend was really upset. Like I remember like she got back to the hotel and then she just sat in the bathtub and just like in warm water and just like sat there for like 40 minutes trying to digest this whole thing. So anyways, yeah, if people go to Amangiri, I highly recommend it. It's so beautiful, but then maybe think twice on this. What was it called? Like it was a fancy
Via
name.
Ferrata.
Yeah, Via Ferrata. Okay, so next question. What's your thought on this year's Only Watch? And like if you had to pick up one, what would it be?
I mean, the one that I'm most excited about is the Akrivia Recepi's watch, but the picture is not released yet, so I don't really know what to expect there.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a very bold move for Patek Philippe to make this desk clock as opposed to like a wristwatch.
Mhm.
I was even wondering if they were going to participate this time because I don't know if this is something I made up or something that they actually said. I remember last time they said that this was like the last time we're going to do it or the last watch we're going to
Oh.
make, and making a clock obviously makes sense or whatever. But if that's what they said, but I had in my mind somehow that Patek was not going to participate this year. But I thought that the clock's like really cool.
So this year is going to be their last year?
No, I don't know. Like the last one when they made the steel Grandmaster chime,
Yeah.
I was like, how can they possibly top that? And I don't know if it's something that I've since made up or something they actually said. I
Mhm.
remember somebody telling me that was the last watch they were going to make for Only Watch.
I see. I see.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, like, you know, if that was true or not, or if I just made that up, but I kind of remember
We'll
that.
see in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of basketball. What's your favorite team?
Warriors,
Warriors. Okay, favorite
Yeah.
player?
Steph Curry.
Mm. Yeah, his family is so cute.
Yeah, really cute kids.
Yeah. Okay, last question. Aside from watches, what else do you collect? Pokemon cards aside. Aside from
Ooh.
watches and Pokemon cards.
Aside from watches and Pokemon cards, during the pandemic, I started collecting like sports cards again. Is
Yeah.
that something different? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like basketball cards, baseball cards,
Yeah.
you know?
Can I just ask, what is the whole thing about Pokemon cards? Like, isn't it like a huge thing, huge deal?
So I'll admit to you, I know very little about Pokemon. When it came out in 1999, I was already in college. But like, I'm a collector of things, right? And these are like things that people collect. And I
Yeah.
suddenly got caught up when I saw like Steve Aoki started like opening old Pokemon packs and collecting them. So I went and collected a set of like the original ones from like 1999,
Yeah.
like these first edition cards,
Yeah.
which have collapsed in value again, by the way.
Oh, they
They're
have?
probably worth like 30% less than what I paid. It's
What
very
a-
volatile. It's a very volatile market, I'll say.
I don't
Yeah.
know, because like, you know, those Pokemon cards, right? They're probably not the ones you're collecting, but Pokemon cards are really big in the schools here in China.
Mm.
Like them
They
and
are.
the Ultraman cards.
Yeah.
So what I think is that, you know, when a lot of the stuff we do maybe might be down to nostalgia, you know, those kids are going to have grown up with Pokemon cards. And when they're older, they're going to think, oh, do you know what? Like, well, a proportion of them are going to think, now I have the money. Yeah, I can get the cards that I couldn't get when I was a kid. Yeah, and maybe that will keep Pokemon cards like
Well, you
very
know what? Like
desirable
this is
and
a
collectible.
you bring up an interesting point. That's one thing that I thought of. It's that like Pokemon is so great that like it's this marketing machine. It's like a
Yeah.
Disney thing, you know? Like kids now, when they become adults, they'll remember they collected Pokemon. They're gonna tell their kids about Pokemon, and it's gonna be like an ongoing thing, you know? The other thing that you bring up is this thing that we've talked about a lot. It's called like the 30-year cycle. Okay. The 30-year cycle is all the things like I know I'm older than you guys. I don't know by how much or whatever, but for somebody like me, like in my 40s right now, all that cool shit that we couldn't have when we were like kids is like cool again. Like right now, if any of you guys pay attention to like cars, for example, right? Like 1990s cars are like the hottest thing right now. 90s like Acura NSX, Toyota Supra, RX-7, Mercedes like E500, all these things that were cool like when we were young are like cool now because people my age, have a little money and they're like, I want to buy these things that were cool from when I was a kid. So it's this like 30-year cycle of like what's cool,
Yeah, I'm looking into computer games, like the old cartridge Nintendo based games, because Nintendo is such a powerful company. The way they communicate it's very different to how like the PS and the Microsoft they market their products, right?
No,
Very
I mean Nintendo
family-orientated.
is like a marketing genius thing. And
Yeah.
one of the things that kept me busy in the beginning of the pandemic is I was playing this game Animal Crossing on my
Oh man.
on my Nintendo Switch, and it consumed my life and my wife's life for a good like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
That is
And
like that you're in trouble. Like for someone like you, Eric, playing Animal Crossing, you're in trouble.
dude, it was like crazy. And then I just
Yeah.
one day I was like, I have to stop, and I stopped completely. And actually, like a week ago, I turned it on for the first time in like half a year or more than half a year. And I don't know, like, you know, that game, there's a kind of like like time goes by like in real time in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I didn't play it forever. There were just cockroaches everywhere. It was like a really weird thing.
What?
So,
Yeah,
Okay.
but guys, did you know that Nintendo, right, started off as a card company?
Card game, yeah.
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 Card
Yeah.
play,
So-
card company.
If you really want to, like, yeah, I'm interested in that kind of stuff. So I'm researching right now.
Wait, how come, Dan, you said it's for someone like Eric playing Animal Crossing, he's in trouble?
Because it's all about like collecting
Details and collecting.
details. Yeah, it's all about that. Like, and it's not just on one segment. It'll be like fishing. It'll be like making money. It'll be like apples, the trees, right?
Dan,
like,
did you play? Did you play Animal Crossing?
No, I didn't. But like,
Okay. So I
yeah.
discovered this weird thing, or actually, my wife discovered this. I'll tell you. So you can get like you collect money in these like gold bags, okay? And then like if you plant the gold bags in certain holes in the ground, they turn into money trees that come out with like money. But it's like 70% of the time you get more money, and 30% of the time you lose money. So it became this like gambling thing, and I was like consumed with planting trees. And you had to wait overnight for the trees to like turn into like trees, you know? This game consumed my life.
I thought you would have learned from your eBay experience not to plant those
Yeah.
trees.
And then like you know, again, like you said, fishing, you had to collect
Yeah.
the rare fishes. Like the
Yeah,
rarest
exactly, yeah.
fish in the game is the great white shark. And I never got that. So
Look,
yeah.
but where do you fish? Like in streams or
In
ocean?
the water. No, like they
Yeah,
have
there's
like
a-
islands and like oceans and stuff.
You need like maybe a certain rod again that you have to, it's all about details.
If you were
Yeah.
like clinically diagnosed with like OCD, this game would consume your life and like ruin you forever, because there's so many tangents and details in the game. Like it's just brilliant. It's a game really about nothing, but at the
Yeah,
same time,
exactly.
there's so much stuff to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never played it, but my friends were absolutely obsessed with it. They started making like dresses. I think like they started like buying packets where you can actually design like Chanel
Yes,
or
you
Dior
can.
like bags,
You can.
and they were obsessed by like designing these like what they actually have in their wardrobe, and then making the mini version in Animal Crossing, and it was
There were-
consuming their lives.
There
Like,
were a lot of unintended funny
Oh.
things in that game. Like there's also people that that visit your town, and sometimes they like cheat you out of money or something. And then I discovered that I could put them in jail. And basically what I do is I build fences around them and they couldn't move. And then like this one guy has been like locked up in that jail for like 9 months now.
are these real players? Like,
No. It's like a computer player in
oh,
there. But it's
okay,
like
okay.
the guy like sells like carpets, right? And then he sold me like a carpet that ended up being fake. And actually, when you go to sell it, the guy's like, "This is fake." So then I like locked him in this little jail area that I built, and he's still there. This game consumed my life. Talking about it right now, I'm like feeling like I need to turn on my Switch and play it right now.
But like, I don't know if I can say this, but like, if we can't, we can cut it out. But Long Long does it the opposite, where she looks at Barbie and she tries to dress like Barbie. Right?
Dude, go and check out that page, Barbie
It's
style.
scary.
It's
Barbie style?
insane.
Don't check it out. It's like
no, check it
nightmares.
out. It's amazing. It's
No,
every
it's
single
because the
legitimate-
profile picture you would actually think is a real person, but everything is just Barbie.
But
Wait,
it's
what
the
is
actual
it?
brand.
Barbie style?
Barbie style. All the brands in the world make Barbie size versions of whatever they produce. Like even
Oh, I
Starbucks
see it now.
will make.
Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's
So
so
people,
cool.
people like, if you look at Long's Instagram, you'll notice that some of it's actually Barbie inspired.
No, sometimes I'll be like, "Oh my god, Barbie's wearing this. I need to go." get it."
Did you collect Barbies when you were a kid, or did you play with Barbies?
Never. I was
Never.
no,
Okay.
I was such a tomboy. So
Okay.
this is
Wait,
like
this is
me,
not
yeah.
the account that you showed us. You showed us another
Barbie-
account where it's just all Barbies, and then the profile picture is like
Barb-
a person, but like actually is a Barbie. And that
I mean,
account
I'm
is
looking
actually
at
a
this
lot
yeah,
Barbie-
that's
scarier.
another. Yeah, that's a Barbie stylist. So there are stylists out there that only style Barbies.
Would have known that there's this whole subculture
Yeah, there's like
of
a-
Barbie stuff. Oh, here's
Yeah.
Ken wearing Berluti clothes and shoes.
See, isn't that
What?
amazing? So he's gonna get into it as well.
No, this is not for me.
Watch it like Eric
We'll be
collecting
talking about the
Barbies.
condition of the Berluti shoes.
Yeah.
There's a scuff
Exactly.
mark.
Exactly.
These are real branded things?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No way.
that's why it's amazing.
This is wild.
Who makes
Yeah.
them?
The actual brand.
It's like
No
promotion for
way.
them, I guess, you know? Like
Yeah.
if Berluti's like, dude, we're making Barbie stuff. It's like implanting in little kids that Berluti's like a cool
Yeah,
brand.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, anyways, this has been a blast, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Eric.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
I had a
guys.
great time.
Yeah, sharing all the stories with us. I'm sure our listeners would also like really enjoy listening to this. And also yeah, again, if you haven't checked out the first episode, make sure to go check that out, and then we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Waiting List podcast. Hit the subscribe button, and the next episode will come straight to your phone as soon as it's ready. Whilst I'm here, please remember to leave a nice review and follow us on Instagram at the Waiting List Podcast.